It's a cool, bright morning here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Welcome to your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
We really should copyright that, daily dose of sunshine. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome. Today is February the 11th. Yes, I'm not going to say anything more than that. So, take us around, Maupe. You're taking us up north this morning.
Indeed, Ayo, you've said enough already when you started, saying you're not going to say more than that. I didn't think about anything when you just said 11, but when you said I'm not going to say more than that, then I remembered, the 14th is around the corner. Anyways, it's how it is, Please let the lovers count down. But we're going all the way this morning to Bauchi State, and we're going to be showing you the beautiful center of Bauchi itself. For those who do state and capital, it's very interesting when you listen to children, reel out states and capital, Abia, Umuahia. Well, the capital of Bauchi is Bauchi, and we're taking you right to the heart of Bauchi. This video of Bauchi was captured in the middle of the rainy season, so you most likely might not see it like this if you're taking an aerial view of it. Well, this is how it looks, when the rains have fallen and you can see the trees green and, everywhere is lush and beautiful. You can see lawns. This is actually the heart. When I mean the heart, is the government reserved area. And if you look very carefully, for those who know the area well, they might be able to spot some areas that they know, the government house, the old airport strip. Right there, you can see that patch of land looking a bit empty there. You see a line running in the middle. That is the old government airstrip. But this is Bauchi, the capital of Bauchi State. I hope, Ayo, that as we prepare for the rains, people are really do getting set for it.
And that's the important thing. Don't forget that there is hardly any state in Nigeria which doesn't have its history, particularly when it comes to the rain, and every individual have their experiences. But yes, this is indeed a beautiful place. So when you think of northern Nigeria, don't just look at those patched roof and thatch houses and mud bricks. This is Bauchi State. It's the center of the town, the government reserved area, and definitely a place you would want to be at. So you can just imagine how easy it would be for anyone to want to go to this place for investment of opportunities. And you can see the opportunities for its lush green as well. This state, by the way, was created in 1976. Of course, it was a military. It was during the military government at the time. Right now has 20 local government areas, and the landmass is quite something. So, if you are thinking of where to go, parts of Nigeria you just want to visit, parts of Nigeria you want to go to check how proud you are of Nigeria or how proud of Nigeria you want to be, well, now you have something right there in your face. Enjoy the view.
Indeed, I was taking in a bit of that view, and one of the things that Bauchi is famed for, if you decide to take a visit to Bauchi, is the Yankari Game Reserve. So I know that place is still very functional, and it's got a really beautiful spring you might also want to check out as well while you're at it. But now we're going to be going to Oyo State, precisely Ibadan, the capital, where we have another very historical building of prominence, which is still serving Nigerians today. But, it's been facing quite a number of challenges. UCH, University College Hospital, has been facing a number of challenges in recent times. And one of them has been blackouts at the hospital, this famous historic hospital. I just do not want to make a mistake. I dare say it's the premier teaching hospital in the whole of Nigeria. It's been in the news in recent times for the most unpleasant reason, where, the hospital staff they've had to work in, very difficult conditions where there has been no electricity. So there have been, this particular challenge. And yesterday, the Minister of Power, after many months of, backroom negotiations, decided to visit the institution to find out precisely why it's been taking so long to resolve the issues. And they were able to reach a resolution yesterday. Interestingly, while the Minister of Power, also visited visuals, which we'll be bringing you shortly, I also had a conversation with the Minister of Health, the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, who also said that, part of the reason why is because they're trying to also diversify. So they see that the cost of electricity right now is a bit high, and as such, a university community might not be able to afford all of it. So they're trying to see how they can get different sources, alternative sources of power, such as solar, and find, perhaps parts of the hospital that can strictly be on solar, parts of it that can be powered by other alternative means. But yesterday, the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, was at the hospital, and this was what transpired there.
The impasse between the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, IBEDC, and the management of the University College Hospital, Ibadan, UCH, have generated so much controversy since September 2024, when IBEDC began to disconnect the facility because it could not pay the debt owed. But it appears the matter will soon be settled as the federal government, through the Minister of Power, finally decides to wade into the crisis. The Minister of Power, Mr. Bayo Adelabu, arrives the UCH with the sole purpose of settling all the disputes surrounding the disconnection. But before then, all stakeholders from IBEDC and UCH meet behind closed doors to sort out the grey areas. After an extensive meeting, they briefed the press on the outcome of their dialogue.
It's actually a customer-vendor crisis, which is between the hospital and the IBEDC, which we actually expected them to resolve in between themselves. I've intervened on this particular issue a couple of times, and the hospital was reconnected to the grid, while we agreed on some repayment plan, which I believe were not upheld, which is why the issue lingers till today.
Adelabu adds that series of efforts are underway to find lasting solutions to the crisis, even as they come up with stopgap measures.
We have agreed on an amount. There will be a monthly repayment, and I believe within a period of 8 months to 1 year, this will be fully paid down. And this will be in addition to the current bill being incurred by the hospital. To reduce the bill on the hospital, we agreed as number 2 on the separation of grid supply of electricity among the major consumers within the UCH territory.
On its part, the IBEDC says it is willing to do all it takes to restore power to the UCH within 48 hours.
We are committed to provide our services, our professional services, in collaboration with UCH to ensure that energy is well accounted for internally. We need to identify the area of losses as a collaborative measure.
Midway through the briefing, students of the College of Medicine staged a peaceful protest around the Chief Medical Director's office to drive home their demand of immediate reconnection and implementation of 50% reduction in energy tariff. At the end of it all, it appears that Mr. Adelabu has brokered a truce between all the parties involved with a proposal of defraying the outstanding sum of 283 million naira in the next 10 months, according to the mutual agreement reached at the meeting. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
Well, this was the position as of yesterday when Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, visited. And we're going to be discussing this issue about now, as well as a number of other issues. And we have with us here this morning Mr. Amos, or shall I say, Honorable Amos Magaji, who is the Chairman, House Committee on Health. Honorable, good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Well, this is what we saw on our TV screens yesterday. The Minister of Power eventually visiting UCH Ibadan to see, just how they could resolve the lingering crisis. As of yesterday, it was 107 days that institution had been without electricity. Was it something you were aware of?
Yeah, earlier on there was, I think about a year plus now, there was crisis, a power outage in UCH, and we visited and actually intervened. And then the UCH management and then the
EDC?
Ibadan Distribution Company decided to reach an agreement where payment were made. In spite of that, I think they still cut the light, and then the house intervened, and then they reconnected the light. Now, this was before the Ban A issue started. And then when the Ban A started, the problem came back again. And I think that's the reason why they are now having this huge power problem in UCH. And of course, you know that University College Hospital Ibadan is very huge. And the power situation in that university is teaching hospital is so bad that most time what we decided to advise them was to sectionalize the hospital. Critical areas should have maybe solar power or be on some certain but they have started it. But of course, it's difficult even to run some key clinic with solar.
Indeed. Well, I mean, I spoke with the Minister of Health, the coordinating Minister of Health yesterday. Sadly, that interview would not air until much later. But he did say that that's part of what they're trying to see how they can, implement some off-grid solutions to see how they can reduce the cost since, the UCH is going to be on the Band A tariff plan. But it clearly shows the challenges that quite a number of medical facilities across the country will be facing, because it turns out it's not just the UCH that has complained about this. We've also had a number of other institutions that have complained about this. I think very, very, very few of them do not have this challenge. For instance, the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, which was able to go completely off grid. But from your thinking as Chairman House Committee, what are some of the solutions that you have been thinking of around this particular problem of power? I mean, UCH highlights it, but I'm sure it's not the only one that is facing this particular problem.
I can authoritatively tell you that in all the federal health hospitals in Nigeria, none is without power problem. Power issue has been #1 problem in health institutions. I have visited all except Gusau. I mean, all across the country. Zamfara. And of course, we were trying to get to Zamfara when we were stopped on the road, that bandits were operating on the road, so we had to turn back. But I visited all the tertiary health institutions in the country. And I can tell you all of them, #1 problem is power. And this is because of the overhead given to the hospitals. The budget provisions are a little bit low. Maybe you see a hospital that has probably 200 million overhead. And in that overhead, that's what they pay for outsourced services like the security, the cleaner, and then also take care of their power. Now, the Ban A came to solve a problem, but also created another problem, because the power situation in the hospital where some hospitals were just enjoying maybe 10 to 15 hours of light in a day, and then some far below that. Then the Ban A issue came. Now, you imagine a hospital that probably was paying 30 million per month, and then suddenly the bill from electricity distribution came down to over 100 million, with an overhead of maybe 200 million in a year. So it immediately put all the tertiary health institutions in a big power problem.
So the question is, what are the solutions?
The
What is
solution
the House
is number
thinking
one.
in that area?
Even in the 2025 budget that is still in the House, we're considering, there is an attempt to make sure that many of the health institutions are solarized. That means sectionalize the hospital and then give some mini grids to the hospital where it will take some critical section of the hospitals. Another solution is to actually increase the budgetary allocation to the hospital. But for the meantime, is to solarize the hospital, like the minister said, so that many sections of the hospital will not depend on electricity. They will be totally cut off from the power, what we call NEPA, and then they will depend on solar, wards, and some critical section of the hospital. By so doing, the cost of electricity in the hospital will reduce. But of course, doing that also requires money. Yeah, but that is the first thing to do. And then recently, I think last year, there was also an attempt to give the hospital some concession, maybe giving them 50% off their tariff. And then this is also part of the discussion going on. So to ensure that critical areas receive some intervention as regard power, and this has to be reached between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Power. Because of course, if somebody is, if you are subsidizing power for an institution, somebody must be paying the amount subsidized. So these are some of the agreement that the Ministry of Health and then the Power, Ministry of Power is reaching. The problem of power is all over the country. It is not just UCH, but of course, bigger hospital will have bigger problem. Smaller hospital will have maybe less problem because the amount of light they consume is so high. This is to say, we're looking at just electricity. Now, they don't have electricity 24 hours. There's also the issue of powering their generator. Some of them spend over 50 million in a month just to power a generator. So if you combine the amount spent on powering on diesel and then electricity, some hospitals are going over and above 150, some 100 million, some over that.
Which is not, is this sustainable?
It is not sustainable. So that's the reason why the issue of alternative power need to come into play. And of course, you know that many of these hospitals are operating very sensitive medical equipment, things like MRI, CT scan, and fluctuation of power will destroy those equipment that were procured for over $1 billion.
Big issues, really. I'm sure that Ayo will want to intervene before we go on to other issues. Ayo.
Thank you, Malkwe. You know, one of the issues that came to mind as you began to talk is, particularly for an institution like the UCH, is that it's a legacy institution. It's an institution, one of those institutions that's brought significant acclaim to Nigeria as a bastion of healthcare delivery in the country over time. It would seem like it's either we don't have, we choose not to have a sense of history, or we don't even know the impact or how far-reaching these things, go from time to time. As you said, it's the power problem for UCH as for other teaching hospitals in the country. They are not new. What led to that? Is it that we don't know how important, how significant these institutions are, Mr. Mugachi? I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, very faint, but I think I heard you saying what is the problem. Now, the issue is the budgetary allocation to many of these hospitals. This year budget, and of course last year budget, the Abuja Declaration clearly in 2001 clearly agreed that the budget for health should be about 21% of the budget should be for health. But unfortunately, Nigeria hardly reached a 10% budget for health. And of course, these institutions are running They are offering services to Nigerians. The budget for health must really, really be looked into. And then, of course, you know, as a country, health is not only the area where we have challenges. We have challenges in infrastructure, we have challenges in power, we have challenges in health. So the first thing is to ensure that budget allocation for health increases. Now, another solution is to make sure that some of these hospitals, the amount that Nigerians pay for these services are reviewed. But of course, reviewing the amount would also cause a lot of problems since many Nigerians are living below poverty level. So these are critical areas that must be looked into. The Ministry of Health have come up with so many interventions, and of course, even the House. Just from a few months ago last year, we declared state of emergency on health. And these were from the House of Representatives. And these are some of the critical issues that we're looking at. The spending on health is low, and then of course to see how we revamp our hospital. I can clearly inform you here that the hospitals today are not where they used to be. Even though we are having huge challenges, but our hospitals in Nigeria now are better than where they were 5 years ago. And there is serious commitment in the House, and of course the Ministry of Health also, to ensure that our hospitals are not just mere consulting rooms. There's a plan, and then of course we are upgrading the teaching hospitals, Federal Medical Center, and all the tertiary health institutions in the country. Very soon, some of the investment made on health will be clearly seen. But of course, we are not where we ought to be.
Yeah, but you know, the problem is not whether or not these promises are to be made, Honorable. The challenge is whether or not, you know, we can still get the trust or the confidence of the Nigerian people, because having been disappointed over the years, it's only natural for anyone to say, well, here is another one just saying what he needs to say to get by. So what's the assurance we have this time around? You said earlier that it's a budgetary issue, it's a budgetary challenge, and if we knew this, I mean, definitely we are not unaware that electricity to some extent has been privatized. So for those people who are supplying the services, it is business. Was it part of the thinking of government to ensure that we don't get to where we are now? And I'm going to ask that question again, particularly for the governance in the hospitals and all. What's the assurance that in another few years, we're not going to come say the same thing that we are talking about now? Add to that the perspective we're giving the young Nigerians who are in medical school. What's the assurance we're giving them that you guys can sleep easy, the future is bright, you can practice in Nigeria?
I can categorically tell you that the budget for health has been, has seen an improvement from the year, even though it is not enough yet, but critical efforts have been made to ensure that all health institutions receive an attention. Like last year, there was a supplementary budget for health, and then intervention also came in for health institutions, where equipment, renovation, upgrading of teaching hospitals were key. And even this year's budget that is before the House, infrastructural upgrade, equipment upgrade generally are key. If you look at the 2024 budget, that is one of the budget that for many years that the capital component of the budget was raised a little. So these are to address some of these critical challenges in health. As I told you earlier on, I have visited all the federal teaching hospitals in Nigeria, and I can tell you that many of them are not where they used to be. There's a lot of improvement, even in the medical schools, to ensure that teaching hospitals are receiving major attention. Now, you need to also understand that apart from the issue of light, there are also issues of this jackpot that the health sector, that's human resource for health, that we faced not many months ago. Many hospitals are in their need of medical doctors and nurses. So the attention has gone back to even the medical schools to ensure that the quota given to medical school is increased so that we have more doctors that are trained and more nurses so that we will bridge the gap between, the ones that are living and those that will remain in the country. So I can tell you that there is hope for the country when it comes to the medical health. The Minister of Health, Professor Pate, is doing all in his power to ensure that the health of Nigerians receive attention. We also in the House Committee, we are always meeting. Just yesterday, the Senate Chairman of Health and then the House sat and in our usual meeting deliberated on some of these key issues, looking at areas where we will give more attention when it comes to this 2025 budget. And of course, power was one of them. And but infrastructure.
My apologies, Honorable. My apologies. My sincere apologies. Power is just one of the issues, just as you have said. Now, students of the UCH went on the streets and no one addressed them then. Even when the minister went, you saw the report that was put out. I do not recall if the minister took time to address their concerns. Who is speaking to the students of the UCH and other teaching hospitals in the country to assure them that things are going to be different? It's been many years of degradation, and we all know that it's a lot more difficult to build than it is to destroy. So if it's taking this long to come down this low, how long will it take for us to build it back? So who is speaking to the students to give them the assurance that their institutions of higher learning, from which they are likely to just finish and go to the hospitals, are going to be treated better, and they're going to get the kind of learning they need to match them with their peers in other parts of the world?
I can tell you authoritatively that in 2025 budget, which is before the House and we're still
Honorable, I get that, but just a second, I get that, but who is talking to the students? Who is going to address them to assure them?
I spoke with the Chief Medical Director, I spoke with the Minister, and then of course there are institutions, the CMD is responsible for the College of Medicine there. And of course, the University Authority also. I am not in Ibadan, but I have also spoken to the Chief Medical Director regarding this issue of power in that school. And I'm telling you that this issue is being addressed. You may not see it immediately, but of course, if the issue were not addressed, just the report that we saw now, the Minister of Power went there. And that's a step to solve the problem of health. And I'm telling you that in this year's budget, UCH was one of the hospitals that received additional allocations in our own budget. I personally work on that.
Let me come to you now about the issue of, because health is broad and it's wide, and I know the power is a major challenge, and that's why we spend significant time there, because some people will say if only we were proactive, maybe with this problem, we would have seen it coming, especially when they're about to switch to Band A, and we would not have experienced this if we had thought through the plan and seen institutions that will most likely have been affected. But, as it is now, we see that, steps are being taken to resolve it. But another one is looming large, which is the fact that we depend a huge deal on donor funding. And we see what is happening with the United States, deciding to do what it's doing with USAID. It's not clear yet, what's going to happen with the organization. There's still a lot of apprehension in that sector. It has pulled out of the World Health Organization, of which is also a major funder. The World Health Organization also funds a number of other projects as well. Do you have any concerns, for our health sector, as some of these major donor bodies are going to be a bit challenged in terms of helping other African countries such as Nigeria?
Yeah, if anybody says the issue of the pullout of the United States, USAID, is not a concern, the person is lying. Because through USAID, that there are many Nigerians that depend on ARV drugs from their implementing partners. So these people pulling out will actually cause a lot of problems. But thank God, recently, there was an order that they would, all Americans in Nigeria would have left. But I think the court injunction stopped that. And they are also actually picking
You mean
some
US aid workers?
US aid workers. But right now, they are picking up some of their project. But it's a warning sign for Nigerians, so that we don't depend on donor funding for critical interventions like ARVs, malaria, and some of those educational programs that USAID offers to Nigeria. That brings me to the issue of our budget. You know, most times...
Our budget, right?
Yeah.
And we have a pretty big budget this year, over 2 trillion naira for the Ministry of Health.
Most time when you look at 3 trillion naira, Nigerians just look at, okay, we have 2 trillion naira for health. Now divide 2 trillion naira by 220 million.
Is that how health is? Is that how we look at it?
Well, just let's look at it per capita.
Okay.
Yeah, if we look at it that way, that means every Nigerian will go home with less than 11,000. That's if our population is 220 million. For the whole year, 10,000 naira cannot buy augmentin. So when we say the budget of health is huge, imagine UCH. The money that UCH need to overhaul that hospital is in hundreds of billions. That's just one institution. Look at Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital. I told you I've been to all these hospitals. There is none without a problem. And these are as a result of many years of negligence, many years of poor funding. So if you look at, you say the budget is huge. South Africa has less than the population of Nigeria.
I'm observing that when you look at all the cost components of the budget this year, it does appear that health is getting some attention, some good attention, compared to previous years. Of
course, health is getting some attention. But with the numerous challenges that we have in the health sector, by the time that money comes and is sunk into health, there will be some observable differences. Some intervention will be obvious, but of course some of them would take years. Even look at the entire budget for health for Nigeria, with the population of over 220 million. South African budget for health is by far more than the budget for Nigeria, with a population by far lower than Nigeria. So just look at the example I gave. If Nigeria, let's assume that there will be no infrastructural upgrade, there will be no procurement of any MRI machine or anything. Just take the budget for health and divide it for every Nigerian. That means every Nigerian will go home with about 10,000 naira, as against the budget in the United States, where every citizen in America is going home with over $15,000.
Why do we always use the US? Isn't that, I mean, when you look at our budgets, they certainly have nothing to compare.
Well, sometimes it is better.
Why we're not using other, maybe neighboring African countries or countries in the same class as us in terms of development index?
Well, that's why I use South Africa.
Slightly bigger than us, you know? Why do we always have to go all the way to the United States?
Yes, because that's where we aspire to be.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that that's where we'll eventually. I'm hoping that, our health, because even they complain about their healthcare system, and we've seen how, they say a lot of their people cannot even access health. And a lot of Nigerians who have visited there sometimes do not really understand how it works. If you do not have insurance, you can't get anything.
And you see, now that brings me to, you say if you don't have insurance, and of course, health insurance here. Do you know before now, the health insurance was like 750? Naira. And then it is now being reviewed to around 12,000 to 18,000. Now, for example, 18,000 naira for 1 year. What would that procure? Recently, I spoke with the DG, National Health Insurance, And then one of the biggest complaints is the capitation. It is too low that right now it is difficult for you to attend to some patients. Not to talk of patients that have critical health challenges.
So you think that the contributory funds to the national health insurance system should go up?
Should go up.
What do you think that, workers should be paying per head? Because the way insurance works is that not everybody is expected to be sick at the same time. The idea is that when, if you're pulling funds, when one person is sick, the money that has been pulled should be able to help one person.
Yeah, what we're working on, if we bench it between, let's say, 20 to 30,000 per year, per annum.
I was afraid. I was going to say per month.
No, not per month.
Okay.
Then you also ensure that we enroll many Nigerians. So if Nigerian, like you said, it is an insurance. So if many Nigerians are enrolled into the funds, then the fund will be able to take care of the sick. There is no reason why Nigerians should pay out of their pocket. And of course, that also has some health implications. Because if somebody is sick today and has to pay from his pocket, and the patient has only 5,000 naira, for the person to move from, let's say, Guzape to Garki Hospital, you pay more than 2,000 naira for transportation. So you better go to a patent medicine vendor and pick whatever you can pick that your 2,000 or 3,000 will pay. And of course, that will also have health implications. Now we are having rising cases of renal failures. This as a result of that. But if every Nigerian knows that whether I have money or I don't have money, if I'm sick, I can go to hospital and get treated, they will make their way to hospital. They will not stop by the chemist to just ask for any drug given to them. And of course, it's business. If you come, you're looking for antibiotics, and then the money you have in your hand is 1,000. The man in the chemist will give you drugs for 1,000. Whether it will cover the dosage or not, his own is to collect money. And that's the reason why we're having so much problem. So our determination this time is to ensure that many Nigerians key in the health insurance. And then, of course, organizations that have not been paying must register their workers into health insurance. By so doing, others that are not sick will be paying for those that are sick. And we'll have a healthier country. And of course, a healthy country is a prosperous country.
I found it very interesting that you're the chairman House Committee on Health, but the Ministry of Health has now been renamed to the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. So you do not oversee the social welfare part of the health. Is that correct?
It's all encompassing.
It's all encompassing, but the House hasn't renamed it.
No, I'm the leading chairman of the Committee on Health. Mm-hmm. So whatever activity of the Ministry of Health is under.
I see.
So whatever aspect that the Ministry of Health is undertaking, we oversee it.
I see. Okay, just clarifying, because I think it's significant.
You wanted to hear that Committee on Health and Social Welfare.
Yes, but part of what got us to this part of the conversation was the concerns you were raising about how we're dependent on donor funding and how we ought not to be. What are the plans? I don't know whether you've had a conversation with the coordinating Minister of Health.
Yes.
On this particular issue. Do you feel reassured that this is a challenge looking at us that we can surmount?
As a matter of fact, the minister was out of the country when this thing broke up, and I called him. And in his usual way, he was trying to network to see how we get some, window period where, to stop antiretroviral drugs just like that is going to have a lot of impact on any nation. So he was negotiating to see whether is it another source or give us some few months before you withdraw so that we can, realign ourselves to take care of some of these needs. So that's what happened, and he's on it right now. This has taught us a lesson that we must not depend on donor funding for our health. Mm-hmm. Just during this budget period, there is an institution called the medical research institution is in Lagos. And the medical research are given by the researches are done by the foreign agency. And then when they pay, they determine what type of research you do for them. So if you are paying, like the saying, he that pays the piper dictates the tune. And then if we are sponsoring research in health, we can decide and say, hey, there is so much going on in hepatitis in Nigeria. Can we research and see what are the immediate causes and underlying causes of it? But if a donor agency comes, he will tell you what he wants you to research on. And as long as we are depending on donor funding, we will not grow. So the way forward is to ensure that we continue to reduce. We won't say we don't need funding. No, we can't say that every donor agency should stop now. But we should make sure that the greater percentage of our health funding is not coming from donor agency, because they can pull out any day and any time.
So let me ask you, for 2025, as the Chairman Health Committee on Health, what are some of the expectations? What are some of the things that you're hoping, milestones that you hope will be able to tick this year?
Okay, there is a lot of attention given to cancer. A lot of attention given to cancer research, the treatment, and then, of course, this basic provision, health fund. A lot of attention is also going into the aspect of blood ban, because all across the country, some people, when they are sick, they may just need maybe 2 pints of blood, and you keep running helter-skelter. There's no local government right now that you go, many of them in Nigeria, that you have a safe blood bank that you can easily pull out. So these are some of the emergency interventions are giving, attention in this 2025 budget. Cancer is giving serious attention. Issue of also renal diseases, because if a worker is earning 100,000 in a month and then is having renal failure, and you need to do a dialysis every 3 times a week, each session of dialysis will cost nothing less than 50,000. So imagine if a patient is on dialysis, even if you are doing 2 sessions in a week, that's over 100,000. That means a patient under dialysis will spend like 400.
So what are you hoping will change this year with regards to that?
What will change this year is there are a lot of hospitals that we're opening dialysis centers, and then government is trying to increase the catastrophic funds and then vulnerable group funding.
Okay.
To assist those Nigerians that.
And that is
then,
happening.
Of course, the issue of health insurance also, looking at trying to put some of these things into, the health insurance scheme.
All right. Well, we certainly will catch up again with you in the course of the year. I know that health is something that is very broad, and maybe by that time you would have added the social services or social welfare to your title as well. We have to thank you very much for coming on the program. Honorable Amos Magaji is the Chairman, House Committee on Health. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a break at this point, and we'll be back shortly to discuss another matter, this time around bordering on U.S.-Nigeria relations. And interestingly, our guest is going to be joining us all the way from the United States. So please stay with us. Well, I did say that we're taking a look at another matter now, and yes, it is about U.S.-Nigeria relations. The story that broke over the weekend saying that Dropbox services were no longer going to be available to Nigerians. Turns out that there is a little more to it. We're joined now by the Chairman, House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Honorable Wale Oke, who coincidentally is all the way in the United States and joins us virtually. Honorable, good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I don't know what time it is over there. I imagine it will be really late.
It's early morning. It's 3:45 a.m.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us. But I'm sure you've heard about this particular issue. And as the Chairman, House Committee on Foreign Affairs, it must be something that concerns you. Have you started making any inquiries as to what exactly could have caused this situation again?
I don't think there is any serious issue here. One, it is the prerogative of the United States to cancel Dropbox procedure in renewing visas for Nigerians. There is this principle of reciprocity in the diplomatic arena, where states, countries treat each other equally. And as it regards visa issuance or renewal, that's not what we offer Americans in the United States. That's not what our consulates, when Americans or Nigerians born in America, businessmen applying for visas, that is not the we don't offer them Dropbox. So that they offered us Dropbox. I think it's entirely their own prerogative. For example, until President Bola Tinubu assumed office, American government was issuing Nigerians visas for 2 years. Who were issuing them 1 year? Later, they moved to issuing visa for 5 years. Who were issuing for 1 year until President Bola Tinubu came on board and directed the Minister of Interior to reciprocate. So I have not seen anything that American has. It's their prerogative in any way.
Yeah, but if something used to be easier for citizens of the country and all of a sudden what used to be seen as much easier is now made a little more difficult, don't you think that we have a responsibility to inquire as to what the challenges could be?
Unfortunately, it is their prerogative, it is their decision. I contacted the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. If he has any information regarding this, and he told me clearly that he is not in receipt of any communication correspondence from the United States of America regarding this issue.
Well, we live in it.
Yeah, exactly. But like I've told you, we don't offer Dropbox to Americans in the US, right? So if they offer us earlier and they decide to withdraw it, I don't see, we just have to live with it, that for now. But while we would, ask, relate, more so than I'm in the US, I'm in New York for a UN function, I will reach out to our CG and our CDA, permanent rep office, to find out what is actually happening. And I can also share further information on this.
Well, it's interesting that you are in the UN right now and you're also in New York in the United States. And I'm just a little curious as to what your thinking is with regards to U.S. bilateral relations with the second coming of President Donald Trump. For many people who are watching world politics now, a number of people will say that the times are uncertain, especially with his policy of America first. From your own, from your analysis on your own, permutations, do you think that Nigeria stands a lot to gain from the outward posture of the United States towards the rest of the world?
Let me submit that irrespective of whatever President Donald Trump is saying, the grand norm of United States governance is their constitution. So anything outside the constitution, it won't work. And these institutions in the United States are so deep in, they've been around over years that they have their independence. So you won't be surprised, even where you have President Trump party members in the majority in the Congress, you'll be surprised that they will all stand by the provisions of the Constitution. Having said that, I am of the opinion, and I speak for myself, that Nigeria is such a very important country in the Committee of Nations that no country want to ignore. Take it from me. So we are that asset that the entire world, is waiting to tap. So I am positive that we will reap from the posture, from going further from the activities of President Donald Trump.
In what areas? What are our mutual interests that you think we will continue to? The United States can benefit and also will be of great benefit to Nigeria as well?
Well, we trade. I know in the areas of trade, they are partners, and we also look up to gain so much from them when we work together. We're aspiring to be a member of a Security Council. So, America, has a lot of influence, a lot of friends. So, I can tell you that we have a lot of things to gain. You've just spoken, engage my colleague, which chairs Committee on Health, about donors and all that. I am sure that in the next 2-3 months, all the restrictions, executive order placed by President Donald Trump will be relaxed and will come back. I am sure it's just taking its time to evaluate what has happened, under President Biden, So I'm very positive that America wouldn't want to lose our friends.
Okay, well, I'm sure the rest of the world would like to share your positivity. But let us take a look at, America as a model, because part of the reasons why America also grew very popular, it's not just in terms of its what is done with institutions like the United Nations. I mean, it came up with I think at the end of the Second World War was when, institutions like the UN were formed after the Great Wars and, the 5 major powers coming together, et cetera, et cetera. Now, many years down the line, the US has since wielded soft power, through its, marketing of democracy as the hallmark system of government. And this is something that Nigeria, which yes used to have a democracy through the parliamentary system, decided that they were going to model themselves after the United States. Is there anything you're concerned about with what is currently happening internally in the US and how, there are concerns around democracy and how it's looking? Do you think that perhaps, that influence of the United States in, being the bastion of democracy is going to start to wane somewhat? Is it a fear you share?
Like you observed, we practice parliamentary system, then we now turn to the American system, the system, democracy, constitutional democracy. I think the Americans are doing things to their own advantage. That's why the President Donald Trump motto, as I would say, American first, is working there. So in Nigeria too, for example, I think we should look inward. We need to go back to the drawing table and see how we can rekit our own democratic practices. Unfortunately, the constitution we're operating was put in place by the military. We are yet to make that determined effort to look at our constitution again, look at its workability, because we need to look at our nature, our culture, our ways of life, vis-a-vis current developments, because when the constitution we're practicing now was put in place was in 1999. So you can imagine what has happened in 1999 to date. Let me give you an example. When last did we conduct a population census? Look at the population, look at the representation. Is that the parameter acceptable around the globe? These are all the issues that we need to weigh, and then look at what American system is promoting, and it's working for them. Is it working for us in our own case? I think it is working, and it can work if we domesticate democracy properly in our context.
Let me quickly ask you, this particular issue which you have said, I'm sorry, I have to circle back now to the issue of the drop box system, because there are a number of Nigerians who are now caught up in this, visa application system. Sometime last year, the United States did announce that it was changing the platform or the platform upon which Nigerians could apply to the United States. And I think they're changing the entire website, and they gave a deadline through which, people could apply if you're going to use the old website. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until a particular time before you could apply again. Now, from what we understand that, some people have qualified for interview waiver and have paid. They've got appointment confirmation dates, but were unable to drop off their documents on the appointment date owing to the migration to a new website by the American Embassy, and up till now have not been able to get an appointment to submit their documents owing to no fault of theirs. And, they're concerned that their visa fees are only valid for 1 year. I mean, for those Nigerians who have complaints such as this and have been caught up in a web of changes, owing to no fault of theirs, is there anything that the Nigerian government can do?
Well, like I told you, you're aware that I'm in the US. I will take this matter up with, after finishing my meeting in New York here, I will be in Washington as well. We have a charge the affairs there, Ambassador Teboje. I will take this matter up with him and see how we can, navigate and resolve all the issues.
So we have reason to be optimistic?
Absolutely.
How quickly do you think Nigerians can get a response to this? And how do we get the feedback back to them?
Well, we will work on this. I will engage our charge the affairs in Washington. I will also be engaging the CDA permanent rep office and, of course, the CG in New York here on this matter. And I can assure you the response from the American government.
Well, Honorable Oluwole Oke, we wish you a very successful mission in the United States, and we hope to catch up with you when you return to the country, and look forward to that feedback which we're expecting from you. Thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us on Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, at this point, we'll have to take a break and do some business. And I know that John McQuay is itching to tell you just what the commodity prices and equity prices are saying for those who are watching world markets. So take it away now, Ini. Well, Ini, I'd like to say you're welcome, and no one can say that you didn't do anything for them, especially with the warning of the IG that they're going to be enforcing the third-party insurance policy from the 1st of February. So Ini has been doing some work trying to educate Nigerians on the importance of getting their third-party insurance. But we are looking at something else. We're looking at the category of people who certainly might be impacted by this, by the new policy of the United States, or will I say the shift in policy with regards to the USAID, that's the United States Agency for International Development. But it does appear that there has been some reassurances given. The question is whether it is clear. I mean, the United States, through its agency, the USAID, has been supporting, a number of communities through its donor funding programs, one of which is for people living with HIV/AIDS in different parts of the world, Nigeria inclusive. So this morning, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Abdulkadir Ibrahim, who is the National Coordinator of NEP1. NEP1 is an acronym for the Network of People Living with HIV/AIDS in Nigeria. It is the umbrella body of over 1,000 support groups of people living with HIV in Nigeria. Mr. Abdulkadir Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is where we are right now. There was a lot of uncertainty in the air with regards to what was going to happen to funding for critical groups, such as people living with HIV, and, what was going to happen to the support that they got through counseling, through the antiretroviral drugs, etc., etc. But it does appear that the U.S. has, through its U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has now said that, well, for these critical areas, they will continue support, whilst they also walk through their issues with the USAID. Have you found this reassuring?
Yes, we found it reassuring. In fact, we have received that formal communications through the PEPFAR agencies and their implementing partners, and some of our community service providers have begun to continue or resumed their normal work, even though still with limited restriction in terms of the overall services. But the waiver clearly stated some programs that have been waived, especially treatment. They are very clear about treatment and also prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV infection, including prevention for breastfeeding mothers.
So have you been able to get that message across to all of your members who might have been apprehensive about this development?
Yes, even prior to the waiver, we have already communicated to our state chapters across the country, and also to reach out to some of our support group members whom they are within the category, and also to reach out to our ad hoc workers who have been asked to post their work. But basically, everybody is informed, and in country, there have been an ongoing discussion, especially through some government agencies like the National Agency for the Control of AIDS. NACA has been the first to convey an emergency meeting where we discuss and also provide some basic feedback, and they also gave us the assurances of the government. Then later on, the coordinating minister through CCM. CCM is country coordinating mechanism, where he convey all the executive escorts, which I am part of the board, and where he assured us of the government commitment. And I'm pretty sure that you have seen the recent release last week of the government commitment, just to ensure that there is no disruption of HIV services within the 90-day period that the US government has provided.
So I'm just looking at the fact that some people have now started saying that there are lessons that we ought to learn from this, let's say, little upset, so to speak. So that it would seem that in certain areas we have become too reliant on donor agencies and the work that they do. That yes, we should be grateful that they do it, but we shouldn't see it as a right and abdicate our own responsibility in that regard. Has there been any support that your organizations like yourself and the people living with HIV, has there been any support that they get directly from government?
So basically, our work is in partnership with government, because we are product of the government. Then in this regard, I can say that, yes, it is a pity that about 90% of HIV treatments or program generally in Nigeria is through foreign aid. But prior to this period, as a country, we have been working so hard to ensure that we keep informing our government through different channels to see that this thing, in fact, even within the global health system, a lot of changes are happening. And as a country, we need to really start thinking on how to own our program, because HIV is no longer that serious matter, because there is treatment available. And with the quality of ARV drugs that we have now, within 3 months, somebody who is infected and if placed on treatment will be able to achieve viral suppression. And even if you test, you can't even find HIV infection in that person's body. So it is an opportunity for us to begin to see how are we as a country take ownership of this. I know NACA and the Ministry of Health through NASCAP have been making effort to do that. But I think it is a wake-up call for us, because total dependence is really unacceptable for us as a country, because we have about 1.9 million people who are currently receiving the life savings antiretroviral therapy, which about 1.5 of this number is receiving support from the US government directly. So you could see that we have a huge gap and a long way to go as a country. But the beauty of this is that the current government has demonstrated willingness and capacity to really show that, yes, we can always be there to safeguard the life of our people, because the recent fake approval to us is a welcome development, and we are happy with that, and we look forward to seeing how government will move away from purchasing some of these drugs and bring it down to the country level, where we can be able to manufacture these commodities, with the view that in the event something like this happen. We had during COVID, and this is the second example, because when the announcement was made, everything was shut down. You can't go to facility, you can't access any commodity until later on, through internal discussions, and majority of the implementing partners are local NGOs, and already there have been distribution of some of these commodities to hospital, and you can't disrupt that because we are not answerable to American government. But many of the IPs and their agencies have been paused, and we are just working based on it. But now, what we need to do as a country is not to fight, because it is a privilege that the US government is giving to us. So for us as Nigerians and as the community of people living with HIV, all we have to say is to thank the US government. And I want to correct an impression also, and the news that has been going out. The overall HIV funding is not domiciled within the USAID. So USAID as a body on its own is meant to address multiple development issues, which diseases like HIV is one of them. And in country, in Nigeria, is an agency under PEPFAR. It is a program under the Presidential Plan for International AIDS Relief. That's PEPFAR. And they have 2 or 3 major agencies. We have the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and we have DOD, the Department of Defense, which address HIV within the military. And we also have the USAID, which is also another agency that also receives funding from PEPFAR. Am I communicating? Where they provide services through their local implementing partners in the country.
So USAID was just one of them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So while that has been cleared up now, I'm just a little, have there been challenges, you've just talked about how, people have been able to get their drugs, but we still hear from time to time that there are hiccups. You talked about COVID, how there was hiccups, but I have also heard from, before now, how sometimes, even though some of these drugs are supposed to be free, people still have to pay for them. Have you heard such complaints?
So in crises like this, I need to tell you the truth, people take advantages, because antiretroviral therapy is being offered free of charge. But because of this crisis, some, they are due for their appointment. And when they get into the facility, for example, we have a community site where key population access services, majority or if not all, have been shut down because as is the waiver, the announcement that the US, but there are people who are not within the category of those communities, and whatever, irrespective of your diversity or sexual orientation, all we want is to ensure that everybody is on treatment and they should have access to the life-saving medication. And that is the goal. So for that reason, I don't think it is appropriate for somebody to sell. And just like I have said, it is free of charge. And the government is also making effort to make this thing available. But I know people within the community and some healthcare workers who may want to take advantage of this happening, because through our regular calls in Lagos, I can specifically mention LASU as the name of a facility where, as at last week, there is no drugs, and from the feedback we are getting, even though we don't want to be putting that on the table, but these are some of the realities. People will be forced to go and buy some of this either at the community pharmacy. So it's becoming a business venture for some group of people, but I think we need to quickly find a way to tackle that. And I think with what we have, with the waiver that has been granted to the US government and the effort of the government, I don't think there is a cause for alarm. It's just for us to see how are we going to integrate this, and then as government and the people of Nigeria, how are we going to come up with our strategic plans to see how this HIV could be integrated into our health system. And I'm happy with this period. As NEP1, what we just did to support the government is to quickly do a short mapping of the ad hoc staff who are providing these services to people living with HIV and others who are receiving HIV services, because it's not necessarily you have to live with HIV, because we are doing prevention. People have to have access to these preventive measures, such as PrEP, condom, counseling, family planning facilities are all available for people to have access to. So all these things were being disrupted. So what we did was to quickly do a rough analysis, and initially we had about 28,000 people who have been engaged by the US government through their IPs that are working under these agencies, such as the USAID and CDC and DOD. So we were able to map out about 24,368 workers whom we have identified who has lost their job due to this thing. So, but as a country, the Honorable Coordinating Minister is really working hard to ensure that some of this group of people are being absorbed within the government system as part of the sustainability of the program, because I think it's good. What Trump did is really good for us, because it has really made God to prioritize some of these things. And the coordinating minister has taken it upon to himself, because in the wide sector approach, in the health reform program that the government is doing, all these things have been mapped out, and they are now integrating HIV, TB, and malaria, because these are the three major diseases that receive foreign aid. And it's not only from the US government. We also receive support from the Global Fund. And I think they are also another group of partners that we really need to put on the table, because they are investing huge amount of money into this country.
Well, let me go to my colleague Ayo, who has questions for you.
Well, thank you, Maokwe. My first question is just to ask you, Mr. Brian, did you see this coming? Secondly, I mean, if you can take the two together, was the federal government supposed to be a counterpart funder of the projects, the initiatives that the US is defunding now?
Okay, actually, I can say that I did not see this coming, but as part of the sustainability move, it is not a surprise, because we already know that anything can happen, because prior to this, the US ambassador coordinating the global health, security and diplomacy has came to Nigeria, and they have briefed us about some of these possibilities and the need for us to start putting our house in order as a country. And so for that, I don't think it's a surprise. It is something that may likely happen. So, but regarding the counterpart you talked about, usually as a country, we don't need to enter into any contractual agreements with the US. The US program is a support. They donate and provide service not only in Nigeria but to the overall world to achieve global health security. However, There are other programs that Nigeria is paying counterpart, just like the Global Fund.
All right, just a quick one again before the program comes to an end. You said something the other time that we're hoping one way or the other at some point to become self-dependent. The question is how. A good number of the significant ingredients for making some of these medicines that we use, both intravenous and all, they come from abroad. Do you see the potential in country for us to become self-dependent on such issues?
Yes, Nigeria have this manpower, and we also have the resources. It is the political will that we just need. Today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu can decide to say that as government, we are taking responsibility of our people. Remember what is happening in South Africa. These are the kind of challenges we really want to see. And just like I have said, local manufacturing, I think, is the best way to go, and to see how, as a country, we integrate HIV into our health insurance program, and then begin to look for other domestic resource mobilization to take that.
I want to know if, going forward, there's anything that you want your members to either take note of, or you would like to also keep the Nigerian government aware of.
So what I would just tell our members is to continue to remain focused. This is a challenge that we can't just exonerate ourselves. As leaders, as people living with HIV, we also need to take responsibility and also contribute to the government agenda, because ultimately somebody is paying for these commodities, because it's the taxpayers' money. And today the US government is saying that we are putting our people first. So I think it is important for us to also begin to strategize and think and work closely with our government. And me, I'm happy that the government is responsive and is showing commitment and willingness to address this matter.
Well, Mr. Abdul Qadir Ibrahim, we have to thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Elite this morning. We wish you and your members well. He's the national coordinator of NEP1, who is the network of people living with HIV/AIDS in Nigeria, and is the umbrella body of over 1,000 support groups of people living with HIV in Nigeria. Thank you once more for coming on the program.
Welcome.
Well, that's where we wrap up the program this beautiful Tuesday morning. Thank you so much for being a part of our day, and letting us be a part of yours. I'm Mao Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a beautiful and blessed day.